Manchester City, Manchester United, Man United walking away with the points 4-2 with a hat-trick from Toone, one from Galton, and then on Man City side, Miedema and Nak. Let's dive straight in to a absolutely chaotic first half, which saw 5 goals. It was the kind of game that if you tuned in for the second half, you'd be like, what the fuck went down? What did you make of the drama, Rach?
It was so dramatic. And like we were chatting in the WhatsApp group about like some of the things.
I'm sorry, I'm not in that WhatsApp group.
You absolutely are in that WhatsApp group. You just mute us. We were trying to figure out what games we should focus on. And then I said, let's wait and see what what drama the Manchester derby throws up. And bloody hell, I was not expecting that. Poor Sophie got in about 5 minutes before half time. And I was like, don't worry, you've just missed 3 goals. And then she came in to get into some comfy clothes and I was like, you've just missed another goal, I'm afraid. It's like all of the drama in that first half was ridiculous.
Hurry up and sit down. For the love of God, stop your faffing, Sophie, and get back. A lot of people spoke up on Twitter saying they kind of don't rate the fact that Man City have been spending the winter break in Abu Dhabi, because given that performance, it kind of looked like their heads were still abroad. Very, very interesting game. It was everything that you wanted for the Manchester derby, and to be honest, it probably wasn't the way that I was expecting it to go.
No.
I thought City would come out a little bit stronger. We were obviously full of praise last week for Ella Toone. She scored a beautiful hat-trick in just 46 minutes. She's the first player to ever score a hat-trick in a Manchester derby. Rach, what a moment for her.
Wow.
Unreal.
She was great. She was so dogged and tenacious. You could just see that felt like she was leading the press every time. I thought United's press was excellent. And for her to kind of it's one of those lovely comeback moments, isn't it? You know, she got the goal earlier on when she came back earlier on this year, but to top off a Manchester derby with not only a win but a hat trick is like, you can't write that kind of stuff. So nice to see for her. So nice to see how happy she was. Really nice post-match interview as well. Fallon Tullis-Joyce was there as well to give her the Player of the Match award and had some lovely words for Ella Toone. It was such a kind of like wholesome moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, she's so cute. And not only like becoming one of the best goalkeepers in the WSL, but also just like a really good human, like a good egg. But yeah, absolutely wonderful. I mean, she also became the first player to make 10 appearances in the WSL Manchester derbies, which is absolutely huge. There was like, I've got a flag Mark Skinner. There was a little bit of a moment when Ella Toone got subbed off. She went over to Mark Skinner. She was obviously absolutely buzzing. Fans going wild, clapping her like she's had the game of her life. Absolutely unreal. And then she kind of went over to Mark Skinner, looked absolutely delighted. Like he came in for a bit of a hug, and then there was about 2 seconds before her face completely dropped as Mark Skinner delivered some kind of debrief on what had gone on in the game. Very expressive hand gestures, kind of suggesting that he was kind of telling her that she maybe could have done this better or this could have happened. And then her face completely dropped. And a lot of fans have picked up on the fact that maybe that wasn't the best timing to deliver feedback on the improvements that she could have made in that game, given the performance that she's had and given what a tough ride she's had over the last couple of months. So
just let her enjoy the moment.
Yeah, like a lot of people said it's toxic. I don't think it's toxic by any means. I just think there was a lack of emotional intelligence there. I just appreciate that maybe he should have just let her have that moment, I would say. Okay, so off the back of that, we've had a really good question in from listener Layla, who has asked us on X/Twitter, does Mark Skinner deserve more credit than he gets? Rach, what are you thinking?
I mean, for me, one result doesn't wipe away the issues that have gone on before. If anything, I feel like the performance against City shows the levels that the team can get to and have not really been reaching this season. So, wondering where that level has been this season isn't an unfair criticism. I don't think it's unfair. There hasn't been enough consistency in their performances, I don't think.
Agreed.
This season. And yes, they haven't lost many games, but you do need to look beyond the results and, interrogate performances a little bit. And I do think at times they have been passive this season and passive in their press. So when they come out like that and press the way they did against Manchester City, you're like, that's what you want to be seeing every week.
For sure. I mean, that was a significant win. I think obviously, getting the win over City, it's a derby game. It's one of the first games back after the January break. And obviously it puts you now in content. Well, you step up to third. You're back in the kind of Champions League spot. So you're kind of back in, there's that mental thing that you're like back in it. But at the same time, I don't think it was, despite the win and despite the strong press, I don't think it was Man United's strongest game. I wasn't looking at that and thinking, God, Skinner, you're a tactical genius. I mean, they still, even looking at the stats, I mean, they had 26% of the possession. I mean, to create 4 goals out of that is absolutely unreal. But then when you look at things like they had 240 passes completed to City's 672, Man United committed 10 fouls. They were breaking up play quite a lot, which is tactically incredible. But this is a consistently top 4 side. Like, to get that level of possession in a game like that, I still think isn't good enough. Well, and that's really harsh criticism given how they've won the game and how good the press was. This is me trying to literally pick apart the performance and say, like, yeah, it was good, but I also think they were super lucky because they pounced on mistakes that City made.
True, but they made those mistakes because of the press. And I think perhaps they went into that game saying, let them have possession. You know, we've seen it where teams have done it. Chelsea did it a little bit where
75% possession
is a crazy amount. I mean, City do have the highest possession stats in the league. In terms of how much they have in a game per game on average. But perhaps that was what United's kind of approach was to let them have possession and to use their energy to press them high. And I think you see, when you look back to the Chelsea game and to this game, there are 2 very different approaches to the same issue, which is Man City having possession and liking to pass around the back and making the player jump and finding the spaces. What Chelsea did was they didn't jump. They sat back. They let Man City play around the back and Man City couldn't figure out a plan B. Conversely, Manchester United pressed them high, gave them so little time on the ball, and again, Man City didn't have a plan B, and they were forcing those mistakes where, like, the goal, was it I can't remember, it was the second Toone goal, so the third goal, where Chiara Keating passed straight through the middle, literally maybe 90 seconds before she had done that, and almost it was dispossessed. Manchester United, I think maybe Elizabeth Turner got in there and missed the goal, right? Literally carbon copy, and that is what resulted in the second goal. Was the third goal was passing out from the back when a player was under pressure. And you know, those decision making moments, you're like, okay, that should have been a warning. It should have served as a warning, and instead it was plan A, let's do it again. It didn't work the first time. It didn't work the second time. And I think that will be frustrating for Man City fans, because you're like, if that's not working, you got to do something else.
Well, let's talk about a pretty integral player and part of the playing out setup, and it obviously pains me. Chiara Keating, we can't not talk about her performance. It wasn't the game that she wanted to have. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I think even from like the first attempt, the Galton shot that she didn't score, it was still that there was a dodgy pass. The whole escalation of that event was because there was a dodgy pass out from the back. Chiara wasn't even under pressure. She'd played it out. It was like the direction of the pass wasn't great. The pace of the ball wasn't great. And then obviously that leads to then the defender having to take a dodgy touch. And then it leads to loss of possession. And all of a sudden, Man United on heat, completely going up and always creating a very early chance. And then you kind of look at some of the other situations that have happened with the corner for that goal. I mean, Chiara, sort of, the first thing she does is step forward. And as a keeper, you can't be doing that, because like, you need to be able to be in a position where you feel confident enough to kind of wait until the last minute. But as soon as the ball is kicked, she's almost like going forwards, and then she's misjudged it. She stepped forwards too early. It's gone right over her head, and then it's led to that second goal. I do have to kind of lay some blame at the defenders. I mean, there was 4 defenders in and around where the ball actually landed the first time, the initial drop, and then it goes in. But Chiara, like, she should know better. Those are like small technical things that you should be sourcing through by now. And I think there was definitely a lack of confidence, and there was a shakiness to her that I think I've not seen in a while. I think we mentioned before the pod started, there was the situation with the Arsenal game. This was it last season or season
before?
Season before, where she came really far out, like almost to the halfway line. I think was it Russo?
Stina,
yeah, of course. Stina like almost dinked it over her, and then it was like an open goal.
They both went for a header, and Chiara mistimed the header, and it went over her, and Stina went in. I actually want to ask you that as a goalkeeper, because
go on.
You know, sometimes you'll see a number 9 and they have a game where literally nothing is going in, and no matter how hard they try, they cannot score a goal. And it's like the longer that goes on in the game, it gets in their head, and it's, you know, you kind of look at it going, they could play another 90 minutes and not score. As a goalkeeper, when you make those early mistakes in a game, how rattled are you for the rest of the game? Is that something that you manage with experience, and the longer you've been doing the game, the better you manage those moments? And is that a situation with Chiara where you look at it and say, she is a young goalkeeper, she's had these moments before where they've been scrutinised, understandably scrutinised.
Yeah.
And you almost in your own head go, that's going to be another clip that is going to go around and that's going to be another moment that people are going to talk about. And it's when those little things happen in the game, is it something that's just compounded as the game goes on, or how do you manage that?
I think it gets compounded if you then make you make a second mistake. If you do something really silly and it leads to a goal and you know it's an obvious area and you know you shouldn't have done it, like fine, like those kind of things happen in the game. Everyone has them. Obviously, when you're a goalkeeper, it's so much more critical. But if you then go and compound it by making a second error, and in this case, if you then go and compound it by making a third error, you really are in a kind of like a mental no man's land where you're like, this game is a absolute fucking write-off. Like it's really hard in those moments, whether you're like just starting out or whether you're an experienced keeper, because you know that you've really let the side down. And like when they're so individual, these mistakes, it's not like, you know, maybe she was like fucked over a little bit by one of the defenders, or like they're obvious really big mistakes, and like two of those, especially when you get the scoreline, you've got these 2 goals between them, it's super tough. I mean, after a first mistake, normally what I do is like go and reset myself. So I'd like go and, I don't know, literally it sounds really weird, but like go and just have a word with myself and say, okay, like from now, like we start from scratch, like we go again. I used to have like a lucky towel that my mum had got me, and I'd just like wipe my gloves off in the towel and go like, okay, cool. From now on, it starts like a kickoff, and it's just done. I'm gonna have to process this on Monday or whenever we do like our analysis. But yeah,
especially when those goals happen early. You think to yourself, the team still has 70, 80 minutes to get back into this.
For sure.
So you kind of try and, I guess, focus on that and think, you know, there's enough of us here and enough time here to be able to turn this around.
Definitely. But I think because you're also in a side that's committed to playing out from the back. So with that, the third goal, which was the ball to Alexandria, I think, and then you kind of think it wasn't a bad ball because it was like but I think in some ways almost Alexandria could have come more quickly to the ball to play it out to the left side to Kasparai. But I also didn't see Chiara Keating giving her that information that she didn't have long left. So so there was like, I think it was like,
because it comes to her left foot rather than maybe her right foot, which would have been a better positioning for her to turn out then and pass it, right?
100%. But also like Man United, like you said, the press was so severe. Like if you've got to play out from the back, like you kind of rely on there being some kind of overload, especially like the keeper being that additional person. But I think Ella Toone's run was so curved that it cut out Kasparai and also the pass back to Chiara. It was such a clever run from Ella Toone. So there are things that you kind of have to give Man United credit. There was like really small technical details that meant that they couldn't do that. So there's a situation sometimes where you get into that headspace where you just need to fucking long it off. You need to long it off, get it away, take the pressure off. Like, and Man City are good enough to kind of keep the ball up in there and give you like, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes worth of time to just like reset yourself and go again. But
how do you come back from that kind of knock, that kind of confidence? Because, you know, we have to touch on the fact that I think Chiara has played 5 WSL games. Yamashita's played 6. So there has been some, you know, mixing around of the goalkeepers. How important is consistency to getting over those difficulties?
I would really hope that Taylor plays her for the next game. I'd be really disappointed if he doesn't give her a chance to rectify it, because I think even that situation a couple of years back or last season, whenever it was, he played her the next game and she did super well. Like, she redeemed herself. And I think you need to give keepers the chance to do that.
Especially given it's Man United again in the cup, right?
100%. And I think it's really evenly balanced between her and Yamashita. I wouldn't be sitting there saying, okay, well, like put Yamashita on, like she's absolutely incredible. She's also had her moments too. I'm not a big fan of this inconsistency with having like WSL goalkeepers on rotation. I'd much rather a league goalkeeper and then someone who takes the tournaments. Like, that's how I like that format personally. I think that works because you've got your number one. Chiara was a solid number one last year, and then you've got a keeper who's kind of like fighting for that position. You still have that competition there, but I think it's obviously not working.
Especially given there's new faces in defence. It's just another new thing to deal with in that back line.
100%. Well, let's definitely talk about defence. We've got a really good question in from listener Neil, who's a Man City fan and has asked us on Instagram, do you both think City need to strengthen their defence this month?
Well, they've brought in Kanak, which I thought was pronounced Knack, but according to, I normally knock off the K at the beginning of a word like that, but apparently not. Yeah, I think Sky pronounced it like that, and they've actually confirmed that is how you pronounce it, which is a surprise. But anyway, I thought she looked good. Like, she offers a lot going forward. She got a goal, but she could have had more. Mm-hmm. And that's quite exciting for City to have that, you know, that offering from a defender. Maybe bring in another defender just to kind of, you know, solidify you a little bit, give you a little bit of depth, because we know, you know, I know Gareth Taylor talks about liking to have a small squad, but like, you're seeing the problems with that now, and you've seen it in previous seasons. Learn from it, get more players in. I don't understand this desire to keep it so tight.
He's always been like a bit of a frugal
Plan A.
Yeah. Okay, well, Chloe Kelly wasn't named in the Man City squad. There were rumours circulating before the game that Man United reportedly want to sign her on a loan during this window. Do we think this is something we'd like to see, a crossing of the bridge for Kelly?
I mean, I just like to see her get game time.
For sure, definitely.
Where she'll fit in, who will come out of the United squad for her.
With the Euros on the horizon.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting of whether she'd get enough game time. But yeah, that would be, I'd like to see where she goes. Part of me thinks that she's not going to go, and I've seen reports that she wasn't in the end going to go anywhere in this window because of City's lack of depth and because of their injuries, but she's not being played, so.
Oh, I want to see her play.
Yeah.
She's a good enough player that she adds so much value to the WSL. She's also a fan favourite. I really like her. Well, wishing you the best of luck, Chloe Kelly, in this transfer window, depending on where you decide to go, stay, whatever. Man United have now overtaken their City rivals in the table. City are now 4th and way off of Chelsea, 9 points behind. That kind of feels a little bit irrecoverable.
They're now fighting for Champions League, in my opinion.
Yes, I wouldn't say there's a WSL title on the table for City anymore this year, but you never know. Chelsea might have an absolute shitter. It's unlikely. Do we think...
Sorry, having watched Chelsea this weekend, they looked frightening. It's the best I've seen them play, and if you're going to be dropping points already for City, that's not just a mountain to climb, that's fucking Everest. Like,
if I have to hear another rumour about Naomi Girma joining Chelsea, I think at some point the EU competition laws need to step in and just say you actually can't do this.
Stop it.
No one will come and see the games anymore. If you're okay, from literally the mid-September, well, Chelsea have won the league. Look at the state of that bloody squad. I wouldn't even turn up for the games. There's no point. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happens, is it? Between Brighton and Aston Villa, if Chelsea have already won the league.
Well, they were incredible at the weekend. So, but go on. Sorry, let's move on.
Sorry, I was having a rant there.
Yeah.
Do we think, given how far City are off the mark and given that performance, that Gareth Taylor is in trouble?
It's an interesting one because he can fall back on the injury crisis. He can fall back on having lost key players. But it's glaring sometimes in these losses, the lack of plan B. And that's a coaching thing, and it's something he's spoken about, and he likes to have a really, really good plan A, and if you can nail plan A, you don't need a plan B, right? That isn't all down to not having those players.
For sure.
So, maybe he can lean on that, maybe that will get him through this period. And I do think some players looked exciting. I mean, I thought Miedema and Figino looked good. They looked like they were providing a lot. They thought they were a bit unlucky not to get more goals. And bear in mind, Viv is literally just back.
100%.
And suddenly the pressure was on her to fill Bunny Shaw's boots, which are big boots to
save
fill.
the day.
And I saw someone, I think on comms, was just like, Miedema isn't a type of player who can fill Bunny Shaw's boots. And I'm a bit like,
who?
What? Like,
who is this person?
Bunny Shaw, yes, incredible, unbelievable. Miedema's equally unbelievable. She's the record goal scorer in the league. The problem is she's literally just coming back from injury. So to be fair to her, I think when he understandably took her off, they need to manage minutes. But once she came off, you kind of thought, I can't see them getting any more goals or getting back into it. So yeah, it's a difficult balance, but I'd be pretty worried. I think going from losing the league on goal difference to currently being in 4th, and look, a lot can change, but they have to at least get Champions League.
100%. I think, to be fair, any one of those top 4 now not making Champions League feels like a failure. So the pressure is going to be on. I mean, any more points dropped that's a no-go. That's an absolute no-go. You've given yourself absolutely no room for
They've
error.
lost, 3 games now?
Yep.
And Chelsea have lost none.
Yeah.
They've only drawn 1. They've dropped 2 points.
Yeah, well, you just wait and see when Naomi Girma comes in. That's just frightening.